All right, I told you we had comprehensive KCPE coverage, so let me now introduce Janet Muthoni Ouko, an education expert, to go through a couple of the issues that emerged as the 2022 KCPE results were read out earlier today by the Education CS. Janet, thanks for making time for us.
Thank you.
And I know there was a candidate somewhere in your house. Congratulations to them as well.
Thank you.
Speaking of congratulations, you know, we've showed pictures and across the media as the country celebrated the top students. But we also know that at least 70% of those who sat KCPE got below 300 marks.
Yeah.
Tonight, what options do they have? What options do their parents have?
Well, I think one of the things that I've noted with quite a lot of concern is that a lot of the celebrations you see seem to come from private schools. And I think it's really becoming worrisome to sort of sit down and ask really what message are we sending to those learners that were probably in disadvantaged situations. And strictly put, I would really want to ask the Cabinet Secretary today that do you think that the top performers today, if put in the circumstances of your public primary schools, would they emerge top performers? I think it's a question that we really need to answer so that we're not sending wrong signals to our children. As I was coming and around the estates, you could see buses driving all over the place with a catalogue of how many 400s they have gotten. And all of them are private schools.
Pasted on the buses?
Yes, all of them are private schools. And I think for me, it's about resourcing. Maybe some children were better prepared than others, and probably that is now what is playing out. But in terms of what you have asked, is that in this country, the government of Kenya should be committed to basic education. Basic education meaning that all those children have got an opportunity of the next 4 years to be admitted in public primary schools or wherever, secondary schools that probably their parents would afford. And so there is opportunity for those children to go through the basic education for the next 4 years, to be prepared so that then they can qualify to either go to colleges or universities or anywhere. So really, it's sort of to say that, especially to encourage those children that really do not think that their parents have something to celebrate for them. We have seen in this country children that have got 230 marks, but at the end of the 4 years, they emerge with Bs and they emerge with A minuses and they go to the university. So I think here, it's a question of preparedness. So you might have been not well prepared at primary school level, but you have got an opportunity. You will be admitted to a secondary school. You will find that child that had 400, that had 390, and if you prepare yourself well, I can bet you that child will be a top scorer.
I think that's a good way to look at that first question. So do you then agree with the decision not to announce the ranking of the top students? Do you think that's a step in the right direction?
No, I think, and it's agreeable to so many stakeholders that I speak to, that it's sort of we are running a fraud, you know,
in what way?
In terms of why would you appreciate such a ceremony, especially for a scholar that got 108 marks, 100 marks, you have got the statistics, 75% got 300 and below. And so all this celebration is about a 25% that were probably in facilities that do not look like what the majority of children really enjoyed. So I really embrace the decisions today not to rank, not to announce, all these things we are seeing. In fact, it is the media that I know by tomorrow we will have a long list of top 100 and so on and so forth. But I think really the idea here is to not make all this thing about competition, because all of us have agreed that we do not have a basis of competition. You cannot compete between people that were in this different facility from this particular facility. So really, it's not necessarily a competition. And where we wish that we would go, we wish we would get to a situation where we have standardized, facilities, so that at least then we can be able to say that we are sitting one exam. All of us are sure that we were prepared in almost a similar way.
Commensurate across the board.
The input was commensurate across the board. But as it is now, I really do not know. And the question that I have asked is one that I know many parents would want to ask, especially those that have their children in the public schools. I'm just trying to run across Nairobi to just feel how many public primary schools registered 400, and above. And when I'm looking at the Cabinet Secretary, I'm looking at the PS, they put their money in public primary schools, because education is a public good. That is where they put their money. So in terms of accountability, I am not very impressed with what I am seeing, people running 400 and over, because those are private entities. I would really want an accountability from the cabinet secretary and the principal, and the PS, to tell us how did our public schools perform, where we put our money, where we put the bulk of our taxes, go to education. How are those schools performing? Okay,
pertinent questions, and we'll be following up on that tomorrow, even with our continuous reporting on the results that were announced today. But then, of course, the government then comes out and continues to re-emphasize the 100% transition. But stakeholders, from what we've heard, are concerned that 100% transition is more than just pushing the estimated at least 1.2 million students all into high school. There are more factors around that. Walk me through some possible concerns you may have as you think through what this transition would look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the call here is for the Ministry of Education officials to take the 100% transition issue more seriously than calling people at KICD and distributing the 1.2 children into the various public primary schools or the private schools. It goes beyond that, because today, if you tell, for example, Alliance Girls, and this is just by example, that you must take 700 girls, for example, and they have a facility for 600, you leave it for the principal and the parents to just figure out how they are going to absorb the 700. You do not help matters. I think there are very practical things that we would really wish that by January, the government is able to follow up. 100% transition, it boils down to three things. It could have a fourth when you're talking about the medium term or the long term. But in the very short time, because we are speaking about January, we are speaking about three things here. How is the school fees? Because by the moment the government stops with you when they give you an admission to a public primary school, but how about the payment? Can the government make sure that our public secondary schools have fidelity to the principles and the policies that have been, given by government in terms of moderating school fees? We are aware that in this country, school fees is capped at 53,000. Now, in January, parents want to see that at least that is what is happening in schools.
Okay.
Number two, it's about the day schools. The bulk of all these children will go to day schools. Now, there's a policy of government that Kenya runs a free day secondary school policy, but our day secondary schools are not free. The school committees are crafting charges there. And I really ask, can we keep this thing so simple? These children have been carrying their own food to the school. How come that when they go to the secondary school, now they must be organized a lunch program and parents have to be asked 8,000, 10,000 in fees to cater for the lunch program? So the lunch program now bars children from accessing, secondary schools. And I think the third is about the inputs. The third is about the inputs. The inputs for children to join school. We are not going to buy school uniform in schools because it's costing 20,000, it's costing 15,000. Those are the things parents are saying that really, and I have been a CEC, you know that. A child comes, they have passed, but the list of the requirements from top to, it's the school fees, the box, the mattress, and everything. Can the Ministry of Education, in the spirit of implementing 100% transition, make sure that we go back to the basics?
Thank you. Janet Ouko, the education expert. Of course, congratulations to all those who overcame various challenges to get the results they got. But of course, she's got a message there to education stakeholders about things that we need to think about as we consider the 100% transition into the new year, and also what to do in terms of ranking to ensure that no one is